Greetings and thank you for tuning in to Mr. Story Channel, where you can experience the most fascinating moments on Reddit. It's time for our first story. The bride's family demands a lavish rehearsal dinner and hotel stay and calls our family cheap. Family drama. My family is in the midst of this right now, and I just need to rant. Please tell me I'm not crazy for thinking that this is out of line. My brother is getting married this fall to a woman who comes from a very wealthy, Southern family. Our family is solidly middle class. The bride recently picked their wedding venue, a large resort. It looks beautiful, and we're very excited for them. Shortly after choosing the venue, my mother, the MOG, receives a call from the bride's mother. The MOB then proceeds to tell my mom that she has already picked out the place for the rehearsal dinner at the resort. They want around 150 guests, and the resort caterer will be reaching out to my mother soon with the pricing information. My mother is a little overwhelmed by the MOB's pushiness, but she agrees to wait and see the information from the caterer before making a decision on the rehearsal dinner. Well, the information arrives, and the cheapest possible catering option for the rehearsal dinner costs $165 per person, not even including the rental fee or the 24% service fee plus 9% tax. In total, the rehearsal dinner would cost my parents almost $37,000 to host. Obviously, my family doesn't have that kind of money. For context, they contributed $7,000 to my wedding. So my mother immediately calls the MOB back and says that, unfortunately, they can't afford that kind of rehearsal dinner. She apologized extensively and asked if they could host something less expensive at a nearby restaurant instead. The MOB immediately grows angry and says that that can't be done since all the wedding guests will already be staying at the resort hotel, and they can't drive to an off-site restaurant since they'll be drinking. Unfortunately, at this time, my mother realized that she needed to tell the mob that, actually, our family wouldn't be staying at the resort hotel either. We would love to, but a two-person room at the resort for that weekend starts at $550 per night, which is way too expensive for us. This enraged the MOB even more, who went on to say that my parents were being cheap and, I quote, "The room is only $550 per night. It's not even that much." The MOB followed this up by saying that her daughter wanted everyone to stay at the resort and have the rehearsal dinner there, and that she was going to be very disappointed when she heard this news. They ended the phone call with my mother crying and feeling overwhelmed, worried that she might be in the wrong. Much to her surprise, later that evening, my father received a phone call from the bride's father. He told my dad that he was calling to clear up any confusion about their wives' conversation earlier and to reiterate why it was so important that my parents host the rehearsal dinner at the venue. He talked with my dad for a long time, and eventually they compromised on a much smaller, 45-person, rehearsal dinner at the resort. My dad told the FOB that this was still a lot of money for them, and so they unfortunately would be staying at an Airbnb a half-mile away from the resort instead of at the resort hotel to save money. He promised that our family would still make it to all of the wedding festivities. The FOB responded, "Well, I guess it's the cheap option," and they hung up. The bride hasn't communicated with my parents at all since. Well, looks like OP's family is in for a wild ride in this wedding. If you're enjoying these stories, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. This helps a lot. Thanks. Next story is, my biological father isn't coming to my wedding. Let me know through email. 6 weeks out. Family drama. Yeah. My biological father has always been a shit dad, and he knows it too. But I've always loved him and desperately craved his love back. He moved back to his hometown after splitting with mom when I was 3, due to him being notoriously unfaithful, and I would fly out once or twice a year to see him. He never came down to see me. He was, for the most part, emotionally, financially, mentally, and physically absent throughout my childhood and teenage years. He dated a woman who despised me, and once they broke up after a decade together, he reached out and wanted to get to know me. Like I said, I always loved him and was happy to rebuild a relationship. I forgave him everything. God, I have so many crappy memories. Due to bullying in kindergarten, I started wetting myself again after being potty trained, a problem I consistently struggled with my entire childhood. It's a hugely traumatic memory from my childhood. The amount of shame I felt. Don't even get me started on how other kids treat the weirdo who pees herself during school. He knew how tough it was. At a family dinner, He jokingly brought up how he had found my pee-stained clothes and bedsheets to everyone at the table while I desperately tried to make him stop. When I couldn't, I ran and locked myself in the bathroom and cried for hours. As I grew older, he would comment on how much I ate, saying that I was getting too big and too tall. He once pointed to junior gymnasts on TV and told me that I would never be able to do anything close to what they could. He never attended my birthday. My mom had to call him during my visits with him to remind him to actually spend time with me. I had called her crying because I felt lonely. But worst of all was just the feeling of emotional neglect all throughout. I loved him. I was proud that he was my dad. So tall and funny. I thought he was kind and smart. I chided myself for being overly sensitive about some of his jokes. He was being funny, and he didn't mean anything bad. But I never felt like he thought I was anything special. I wanted him to think I was brilliant and be proud of me. Frequently, I thought he found me dumb and ugly, fat and uncharming. He refused to help me pay for school supplies when I studied art at 16. He outright stopped talking to me when we applied to extend his child support payments until after I finished school at 19. I didn't even call or text on my 18th birthday. Mom told me years later that he bombarded her with angry texts, calling her a whore and making other slurs. But we did reconnect, and I thought things could be different now that I was older. We could be friends and enjoy each other's company. He apologized and took full responsibility for being a crap dad. I did, and still do, struggle with a lot of mental health issues due to childhood trauma. But I didn't want to hold that against him. He told me to my face that he only ever had me because he quickly realized how unfit to be a parent he was. He told me that he probably would have chosen to never have kids if he could change it. I nodded. I told him I understood. I grew up into a sad woman with no self-worth who got assaulted and promptly forgave the assaulter. I even went back to his apartment to console him when he felt lonely, only to be promptly assaulted again. And even then my self-worth was so low that I considered him a friend. I would sleep with any man who would have me, accept anything they wanted to do, and do everything in my power to feel any kind of validation from a man. I wasn't doing well. Then I had therapy, and I met my fiancé, and things got a lot better. We got engaged after dating for 3 years, and our wedding is coming up after a 4-year engagement. We booked a destination wedding in Lisbon, where my fiancé was born before his family moved to Canada. We figured that this way, my Scandinavians and his Canadians would have to travel for about the same amount of time. I tried giving everyone a heads up a full year before and sent out, save the dates 10 months before. I understood some people wouldn't be able to attend. I invited on my father's side, my dad, uncle, aunt, and grandma, as well as my dad's best friend and his wife, who were pretty much an uncle and aunt also. One by one, they all declined. And I tried to stay graceful. Dad expressed that it was expensive, but he would try to come. He never offered any help or expressed too much interest, but that wasn't going to bother me. He RSVP'd yes. In fact, he sent that RSVP several times. He texted me at Christmas to let me know he wouldn't get me a present because he needed to save up. That was fine, I replied. Then we didn't talk or text again, which is what's normal for us. Yesterday, I had to check my junk mail to see if an email I was waiting for had accidentally ended up there, and I saw it. A reply to one of the automated emails we've been sending out to guests through a mail client. A reminder that the deadline for the RSVP was approaching. I can't come to Portugal in March. I can't afford it. I hope you have a lovely time with friends and family. Sincerely, Frank, last name. It was sent on the 11th of February, and the only reason I saw it was because I checked junk folder, something I usually never do. My father lives by himself, in a small apartment. He has few expenses, drives his dad's car, and works a reasonably paid full-time job. He owns a very nice motorcycle that he rides through Europe with every summer for 3 weeks. My father told me, through email, 6 weeks before the wedding, after confirming he would come and knowing for a full year the date, that he wasn't coming to my wedding. I don't know why I wrote all this.
Imsad.
I wasn't surprised. I knew he'd let me down, but most of all, I feel relieved in some way. I am relieved that I can finally realize how cruel and selfish he is. I am relieved that I don't have to love him anymore, and that I can finally cut him out of my life for good. Also, to end on a nice note, our wedding will be beautiful. Everyone we love will be there, including my dad, the one who, 22 years ago, met a single mother with 2 troubled kids and decided to love all 3 of them unconditionally. So be assured, my dad will walk me down the aisle on my wedding day. My real dad, and we are both extremely excited about it. I'm so grateful for every single guest who has taken the time and money to come spend the day with us. I told the coordinator at the venue that they needed to be thoroughly spoiled. I'm so grateful for every single guest who has taken the time and money to come spend the day with us. I told the coordinator at the venue that they needed to be thoroughly spoiled. Next story. Grandma is not coming because apparently she hates my other grandma. Family drama. We're having a casual ceremony and party in Texas. My family lives in California, including my grandparents. Travel is hard for grandparents and would take a lot of coordination for hotels, flights, and help throughout the weekend just getting around, which would take away from my dad, aunt, and siblings actually enjoying the trip. So I think, well, our Texas shindig, which is on April 20th, isn't geared towards grandparents. We'll host a backyard reception in California. My dad and aunt are helping host it, and we chose my dad's mom's house as the venue because she's got the space and backyard. It's right around the corner from where I grew up too. Alright, so is my mom's mom. Mom passed away 6 years ago. I have a great relationship with her. She's particular, but nothing out of the ordinary. Over a year ago, I shared our tentative plan. She offered her house to host it at, and I politely declined, 1 hour away from co-hosts. She then told me not to do it at my other grandma's house because she got to name you, lol, she did not. My mom picked the name, but I'm thinking okay, whatever, and I told her that we may but aren't sure yet. Fast forward to now, and I call her to extend the invitation and check the date. She says she'll need to check her calendar, and she asks where it is. I tell her it's at my dad's mom's house. There's a pause. Well, I've never much cared for your other grandmother, and this has been going on for quite some time now, and I won't stand for it anymore. In a horrendously crass tone, I somehow managed to stay composed. Aside from the comment 1 year ago, had there ever been a problem? My dad and siblings also confirmed this is coming out of left field and is out of character. I'm talking plenty of family events and graduations. They have both had a great time together. I respond that I'm sorry to hear that there's an issue, but I can't mitigate or manage others' relationships. It's important to me that she's there, and I hope she'll consider it. She said, send me the invitation. Painfully obviously fakes trouble with her phone. Says, whatever, I can't hear you, and hangs up. I sent her the invitation and got a prompt no. She's obviously upset it's not at her house, or maybe she hates my name. But wow, I've got empathy for her losing a daughter and caring for our grandpa, but why the hell did I even bother attempting to please anyone? God forbid. I want to find a reasonable way to celebrate with my dead's mom, and she calls me selfish. Next story. Am I the jerk for telling anyone who asks why I don't bake for our haul anymore? I really like baking as a hobby. I don't believe in food waste, but I don't often want to eat all the stuff I make. The best way I can describe it is that I love to bake, but when it comes to eating, I'm just like meh. I'm not sure how to describe it. Anyway, I normally give my baked goods to friends and family. The tradition we started when my brother said he couldn't come over to pick up a coconut cupcake pan because he's busy. I didn't plan for space in my fridge to keep the cupcakes and awkwardly left them in the apartment's common room, with permission from the security guard, of course. I left a note saying the cupcakes were free to whoever had my apartment number on it. The security guard said I had to. That started this semi-tradition of me putting whatever extra goods I have on a free table in the lobby area. Others started to do it a little too. It has worked well so far. I like the environment it has created. The problem came when one of the neighbors knocked on my door. She introduced herself, said she's from another apartment floor, and that she, in a visibly upset way, was very unhappy with me leaving unattended food out. One of her kids, who is allergic to peanuts, had some of my peanut butter brownies. I got very nervous hearing this and apologized. She said it was fine, but wanted me to pay part of the cost of getting her child help. I asked if we could talk it out, and she agreed. I agreed to pay for the cab she took back and forth to the hospital, which I know was easy given what happened. I apologized again, and she said all was fine, but please be extra careful. Since then, I haven't left any food out at all because that situation made me nervous. I know it wasn't the worst that could have happened, but still. My hall neighbor, let's call her Lily, asked if I was okay, noticing that it's been a while since I put anything out. I just told her that after what happened with the peanut butter allergy issue, I don't feel comfortable doing that anymore in case something like that happens again. Now, I didn't know Lily knew who I was talking about just based on the allergy issue. Specifically, they knew which kid I was talking about because they saw him take some. I guess Lily spread the word around because I got a knock from the lady again, and she asked why I told everyone to blame her. I explained that I did not blame her or tell anyone to blame her in any way. One of our neighbors asked why the tradition died off, and I only said it was because of the allergy incident, but I never mentioned specifics like who it was, how they looked, etc. She's mad and says I did that purposefully and will be speaking to the landlord to make a report. I apologized again and said, I swear, I did not mean for this to happen, but she stormed off. I'm not exactly sure what to do. I don't hold anything against her or the kid, and I'm pretty mad at Lily for this BS. So, am I the jerk? Edit. I really appreciate the reassurance, y'all. I'm currently working and have a lot of comments to get through. I don't hold anything against the kid. I'll talk to the landlord to give a heads up, as many of you have recommended. Thanks for all those good advice. Next story. Am I the jerk for wanting my fiancé to stop helping out his parents because it's ruining our relationship? My fiancé Joseph, 29 male, and I, 26 female, have been together for a little over 5 years now. Long story short, my relationship with my in-laws has always been a roller coaster since the beginning, especially with his mom, but that's a story for another day. Recently, my in-law's friend, Derek, got pulled over and charged with a DUI, and my fiancé had to go pick him up because he needed a sober driver to take him home. 2 days later, I went over to my fiancé's house to hang out, and then the conversation came up. My mill was explaining to me how he got his license suspended and that he needs it to travel for work. I told her that if my fiancé got arrested and called me to bail him out because he got a DUI, I wouldn't. Her response was, "You might not, but I will because he's my son." What happens after that? Literally the following weekend, my in-laws got into a small accident that they caused by drinking and driving like always, but luckily no one was injured. Sadly, my life gets worse from there. Because since they're carless, since they messed up their car and got her license suspended, my fiancé has to drive both of them to and from work, so his schedule is waking up at 7 a.m. to parent 1, then going home, taking parent 2 at 12 p.m., picking up parent 1 at 4 p.m., and picking up parent 2 at 10 p.m. So most of his day is gone, and on top of that he works. While his brother doesn't help them at all, I try to be understanding, but the fact that it doesn't feel like I can't spend alone time with him hurts. This past weekend, I sat down with my fiancé and told him how I wanted him to stop helping out his parents or try to go 50-50th with his brother on a schedule to help them, because we don't get to enjoy a day out because he has to be at his mom's work on the dot. But all he said was that there's nothing he can do, that I just have to wait because it's not all about me. Knowing them, since they're so much in debt and their credit score is awful, it won't be anytime soon. I notified her that we were taking a weekend trip with friends and that we might put our dog in a doggy hotel, and she asked us why we're spending so much money on just a weekend. Mind you, we rarely go on vacations due to my financial job. All this is driving me insane. By the way, they don't give him gas money, and his mom doesn't want to take public transportation, so he has gotten her an Uber. Or if we go out, she asks us why we didn't take her with us. As a joke? Is this OP right for demanding this from her fiancé? Tell me what you think in the comments below. And for our last story, did I just marry my new wife's debt? I got married in November 2023. I had a property on my own prior to marriage and a healthy amount of savings. My new wife purchased a condo with her sister in 2020 and told her sister not to worry about anything. My wife put $60K down, and her sister put $10K down. Later, my wife paid over $40,000 in renovations and again told her sister not to worry about contributing, as she was trying to express gratitude, a gift, for her sister being there for her in the past by helping her make ends meet when she was in college. Now, my wife has $61K in credit card debt with cards at 28% interest. Their agreement prior to me existing was that when they sell in the future, they'd go 50-50ths on the profits. At this point, her sister is up, and my wife is barely breaking even. I told her I married her with her debts and assets. She expects us to pay off her $60,000 together because I married her with her debt. I provided the alternative of having her sister give her an additional $20,000 at the sale of the property, whenever that is, since I'm going to be helping pay down her debt and have that legally stipulated through attorney documents. She is having a hard time asking her sister for that, saying she feels like she's taking advantage of her sister for going back on her word. We eloped. I bought both my ring and hers because she didn't have any money. She has money sitting in that condo investment, but now doesn't want to touch it because she was under the impression that we'd pay it down together and not touch her sister's 50%. She said $60,000 is nothing for me, but I've worked really hard in preparation for my future family when I'm married. I've offered to help her pay down her debt, so as long as, in the future, whenever they sell the property, we get at least that additional $20,000. She doesn't want to sell the property because her sister would have a hard time getting into another property, but I want us to get out of debt, or at least not be responsible for all of her debt, seeing as how hard I've worked too. Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in and watching until the end. Your support means the world to me. If you enjoyed what you saw and want to stay updated on future content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. By subscribing, you'll be the first to know when I release new videos, and you'll be helping to support my channel. So, go ahead and click that subscribe button, and let's keep this journey going together. Thanks again for your support.